The sun was slipping behind the trees when Victoria Lancaster's Mercedes began to sputter. At first, it was just a soft hiss, a tiny sound under the hum of the engine, but within seconds, the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Red lights, warnings, and then silence. She pressed the gas pedal. Nothing. Perfect, she muttered, exhaling through gritted teeth as the car coasted to a reluctant stop on the side of the empty road. The only response was the distant chirp of crickets and the whisper of the wind moving through the cornfields. Her phone screen blinked weakly. No signal. Of course, Victoria leaned her head back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. It was supposed to be a perfect evening, a dinner at the Hawthorne Club, where she was finally meeting the perfect man her colleague Amanda had arranged.
"He's rich, polished, a partner at Peterson and Lowe's," Amanda had gushed.
Exactly your type, but standing there now, in 4-inch heels and a silk dress that probably cost more than the average rent in this town, Victoria felt ridiculous. She stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching under her stilettos. The sunset stretched across the horizon, warm orange fading into violet. A faint smell of gasoline mixed with the sweetness of hay. The air was cool, the kind of clean, unhurried air you could never breathe in Manhattan. She looked around. Miles of quiet road, fields on both sides, and in the far distance, a small wooden sign swinging gently in the wind. Riverside Garage, repairs and towing, she sighed. Well, guess that's my only option. Gathering the hem of her dress, Victoria started walking. After 5 minutes, she gave up trying to walk gracefully and took off her heels, carrying them by the straps. Her designer bag bounced awkwardly against her side. By the time she reached the garage, the sun had completely disappeared. The sign buzzed faintly under a single flickering bulb. The smell of oil and metal filled the air, strangely comforting in its honesty. A man's voice called from under a car hood. "We're closed for the night. Come back tomorrow." Victoria hesitated.
"My car broke down about a mile from here. I
Didn't know where else to go." There was a pause. Then a pair of legs slid out from under the car. The man stood, wiping his hands with a rag. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a smudge of grease on his cheek. His shirt was half-buttoned, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing strong, steady forearms. His eyes, soft hazel, studied her for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was deep but kind. "Let me guess. Mercedes? 2019? Transmission failure?" Victoria blinked.
"How did you—" He smiled faintly.
"They all do that when they've been pushed too hard." Something in his tone wasn't mocking, just matter of fact, as if he had seen this 1,000 times. He tossed the rag aside. "I'm Cole Davidson." "Victoria," she said automatically, extending a manicured hand before realizing his were covered in oil. He noticed, grinned, and wiped them again. I'd shake. "But I don't think you'd appreciate the new look." Despite herself, she smiled, the first real one in weeks. Cole grabbed his keys and nodded toward an old blue pickup truck parked outside. "Show me where it died." As they drove, Victoria watched the road roll out before them, the headlights cutting through the dark. The cab smelled faintly of pine and motor oil, but it felt strangely safe. "You live around here?" he asked. "Not exactly. I work in the city. Let me guess, lawyer?" She turned, startled. "How?" he chuckled. The heels, the dress, the expression like you're late to save someone's $1 million deal. "It's a look," Victoria laughed softly. "You're not wrong." When they reached her car, Cole stepped out, opened the hood, and leaned in. He muttered a few things she couldn't understand, then straightened up.
"Transmission's gone."
"You're not driving this anywhere tonight." Victoria folded her arms, frustrated. "And what do I do?" He glanced toward the dark road behind them. "You can wait here for a tow in the morning. Or," he added after a pause, "you can come with me. My sister's house is a few minutes away. I need to pick up my daughter."
"I can drop you back in town after." "You have a daughter?" "Yeah, Lily. 7, smarter than me, and definitely better company." She hesitated.
"The city rules. The instincts that told her never trust strangers warred with the quiet sincerity in his voice. Finally, she nodded. All right. When they arrived at a small white house, the porch light was already on. A little girl ran out, pigtails bouncing.
"Daddy!"
She squealed, throwing herself into his arms. Victoria froze. The affection between them was effortless, warm, the kind she hadn't seen in years. Cole introduced her. Lily, this is Miss Victoria. Her car broke down. The little girl turned to her with curious eyes. Hi, Miss Victoria. You're really pretty. Victoria knelt down.
"Thank you. You're very kind," Lily grinned.
Do you like pizza? Daddy always gets pizza when we have guests. Cole laughed. We don't have guests, sweetheart. This is
"An exception." The girl tilted her head.
Then she must be special. Victoria's heart softened. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't being judged, just seen. Later, as Cole drove her back to town, the cab was quiet except for the hum of the engine. The night air was crisp. The stars stretched endlessly overhead. When they reached her apartment building, she hesitated before opening the door. Thank you for helping me, really, he shrugged, smiling faintly. Just doing my job. As the truck pulled away, Victoria stood there barefoot on the sidewalk, holding her heels. The city lights looked colder than she remembered, and though she didn't know it yet, that broken-down Mercedes had just steered her toward the only road that truly mattered. When Victoria stepped back into Riverside Garage the next morning, the smell of grease and gasoline hit her like a wave of déjà vu. The same flickering bulb buzzed overhead, the same old radio hummed some forgotten country song. She stood there awkwardly clutching her designer handbag, feeling as though she didn't belong. A woman carved from a world of marble, now standing in one, built from rust and dust. Cole was already there, wiping his hands with that same rag she'd seen last night. Morning, he greeted, his voice steady and calm, as if he'd been expecting her all along. Morning, she replied, a little uncertain. Any luck with the car? He gave her a look that was both apologetic and amused. Fine luck, she frowned.
"That bad?"
Transmission's completely shot, he said, gesturing toward the car. I can fix it, but I'll need to order parts from out of town. Earliest it'll be ready is tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow? She echoed, disbelief rising. But I have a meeting in the city, he finished for her. Yeah, I figured. But unless you've got a magic wand, that car's not going anywhere tonight. Victoria exhaled sharply and rubbed her temple. Great, just great. Cole studied her for a moment, then asked, You got somewhere to stay? She shook her head. I was planning to drive back tonight. He leaned against the counter, thoughtful.
"I can drop you in town after I pick up my daughter from my sister's place."
It's not much, but it's better than waiting here all night. Victoria hesitated. She had never been the type to accept help, not from men, not from strangers, and certainly not from a mechanic in a small town. But something in his voice, calm, sure, without even a trace of pity, made her nod. All right, she said softly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Cole replied with a grin. I drive slow. They left the garage a little after 5. The late afternoon sun stretched long golden lines across the quiet road. Victoria sat in the passenger seat of his pickup, her silk blouse catching faint glimmers of light. For the first few miles, neither of them spoke. The hum of the engine and the faint country tune from the radio filled the silence.
Eventually Cole broke it. "So, lawyer, huh?"
She turned to him, eyebrows raised.
You remember that?" He smiled.
Hard to forget the way you said it, like it was both a badge of honor and a confession. She let out a soft laugh.
"That's probably accurate. What kind of law?"
Corporate. Contracts, mergers, people fighting over money they already have too much of. He glanced at her, his eyes curious but kind. Sounds thrilling. It's not, she said bluntly, surprising even herself with the honesty.
"It pays well, but—"
She hesitated, staring out the window at the fading light. Sometimes I wake up and realize I've built a life I don't even recognize. Cole nodded, as if he understood more than he should have. happens to the best of us." When they reached his sister's house, Victoria caught sight of a small, white porch framed by hanging flower pots. Laughter spilled from inside, bright, free, and utterly unfamiliar to her. A little girl ran out the door the moment the truck stopped.
"Daddy!"
she squealed. Cole bent down just in time to catch her in his arms. Victoria couldn't help but smile. "This is Lily," he said, setting the girl down gently. "Lily, this is Miss Victoria, but the lady with the broken car." Lily's eyes sparkled. "Hi, Miss Victoria. Daddy said your car is fancy." Victoria crouched to meet her gaze. It was fancy before it decided to stop working. The girl giggled. "Daddy says everything can be fixed if you care enough." Victoria blinked, the simplicity of the statement landing heavier than it should. "Your daddy's a wise man." "He's okay," Lily replied with a grin, then tugged on her father's sleeve. "Can she come over for dinner?" Cole chuckled. "She probably has plans, kiddo." Victoria hesitated. Her mind flashed to the cold, quiet apartment waiting for her, the unread messages from her perfect date still sitting in her inbox.
"Actually,
"Dinner sounds nice." Lily clapped her hands in delight. They ate pizza on the back porch. The evening air was filled with the scent of tomato sauce and cut grass. Lily talked non-stop about school, her cat named Jupiter, and how she wanted to be an astronaut and a ballerina. Cole listened with the patience of someone who'd learned to find joy in small moments. Victoria watched him as he smiled at his daughter, realizing she couldn't remember the last time she'd seen such pure contentment. When Lily ran inside to grab dessert, Victoria turned to him. "You're a good father?" He shrugged.
"I try." "No," she insisted.
"You are. She's happy. That's rare." He looked at her then, and for a brief second, she saw something vulnerable behind his easy smile. Happiness isn't about having everything, you know. Sometimes it's just about knowing what matters. Victoria felt the words sink deep. "And you?"
"What matters to you?"
He thought for a moment.
"Her and fixing things." She tilted her head. "Cars, people," he said simply.
"Cars are easier, though." They shared a quiet laugh. Soft, genuine. Later that night, as Cole drove her back to her apartment, Victoria looked out the window and saw her reflection in the glass. The woman who'd spent her life chasing perfection, now sitting in a truck that smelled of oil and pine, beside a man whose hands were calloused but whose heart was whole. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the need to rush anywhere. When he stopped in front of her building, she lingered.
"Thank you," she said again, her voice almost a whisper. He nodded, smiling.
"Next time your car breaks down, you know where to find me," she laughed softly. "Let's hope it doesn't become a habit." But as she stepped out and watched him drive away, a small part of her, the quiet, honest part, almost hoped it would. The city glittered beneath Victoria's apartment window, a sea of moving headlights, silver and gold, stretching to the horizon. Yet, for all its brilliance, the light felt sterile, empty. The silence of her high-rise condo pressed in on her like a vacuum. She slipped off her heels and let them fall to the floor with a soft thud. Her feet ached. So did her chest in some way she couldn't quite name. Her phone buzzed.
"A new message. You stood me up." She frowned at the unknown number, though she didn't need to check who it was.
Daniel Crawford, the perfect match her colleague had insisted she meet. Corporate executive, Stanford graduate, drives a Tesla and never eats carbs. The kind of man who looked good on paper and sounded worse in person. Another message came through before she could respond. "You realize how disrespectful
It is to waste someone's evening like that."
Victoria stared at the screen, the words sharp and self-assured. The tone of someone used to talking at people, never to them. For a long time, she said nothing. She walked into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and leaned against the marble counter. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far below. Her phone buzzed again. If you can't manage basic courtesy,
maybe you're not as impressive as they say. She placed the phone face down,
resisting the urge to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. This was the man she'd been dressed for last night, the one she'd worn that suffocating silver dress and those impossible heels for, the one she'd thought might somehow fit her life. And yet, as she looked around her apartment, sterile and perfect, her mind drifted back to that garage that smelled of oil and rain, Cole Davidson, his easy smile, his patient eyes, the way he spoke as if he had nowhere else to be, as if every word mattered. She could still hear his voice when she'd complained about her shoes, half joking, half defensive. You should wear something you like, not something someone told you fits the part. At the time, she'd rolled her eyes. Now, in the dim glow of her kitchen, it hit differently. She turned on some music, soft jazz, to fill the quiet. But instead of calming her, it only made her aware of the hollow rhythm of her own breathing. The phone lit up again. Another message. I expected better from someone with your background. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. For a second she considered replying, explaining, apologizing, being reasonable, the way she always was, but something in her rebelled. Instead, she opened a new message and typed, "Thank you for showing me exactly what I didn't need." Then she deleted it. She didn't send anything at all. She simply turned off the phone, placed it on the table, and let silence reclaim the room. When she walked into her bedroom, she caught her reflection in the mirror. The same tailored woman she'd seen every day for years. Perfect posture.
Immaculate hair.
Every piece of her crafted for other people's approval. But now she saw the cracks, the tired eyes, the faint lines of stress that no concealer could erase. She sat on the edge of her bed and unpinned her hair. It fell loosely over her shoulders, softer,
realer. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like Attorney Lancaster of Silverman and Keats. She just felt like Victoria, the woman who once wanted to work for justice,
who loved literature, old movies, long drives, who used to dream about living somewhere with a porch and a garden, not a skyline. Where had that woman gone? She closed her eyes, and for some reason, her mind brought back the image of Lily, Cole's daughter, with paint on her fingers and laughter in her voice. Daddy says everything can be fixed if you care enough. The words echoed softly, like a small truth tapping against the walls of her mind. Maybe, she thought, some things weren't meant to be replaced. Maybe they were meant to be repaired. The next morning she woke early. The city was still grey with dawn. Instead of checking her email, she made herself coffee and sat by the window. For years, mornings had meant meetings, deadlines, the endless climb. But now she found herself wondering what Cole was doing. If he was already at the garage, if Lily was awake and chattering about her breakfast. She smiled faintly at the thought. When her phone finally buzzed again, she ignored it, let it ring until the sound faded away. Instead, she picked up her laptop and searched how to fix a transmission. The result made her laugh, the absurdity of it, the impossibility. But it wasn't really about fixing a car. It was about understanding, and maybe, just maybe, she wanted to understand the world Cole lived in. A world where things could break and still be made whole again. That night, as she walked home from work, the city lights shimmered like liquid gold. She passed the restaurant where she'd been supposed to meet Daniel. Through the window, she saw a couple laughing, leaning close, utterly unaware of her. She didn't feel envy, just peace. At the crosswalk, she stopped, took off her heels, and walked barefoot the last block home. The cold pavement grounding her in a way she hadn't felt in years. When she reached her door, she found herself whispering into the quiet hallway, half to herself, half to the memory of that gravel-voiced mechanic. Maybe next time I'll wear something comfortable, and for once she didn't mean clothes. The following Saturday, Victoria found herself standing outside Riverside Garage once again. This time, not because her car had broken down, but because she wanted to see him. The sun was setting low, spilling amber light over the small town road. The garage looked just as she remembered. A weathered sign, a blue pickup truck, the faint smell of gasoline and pine. But somehow it felt inviting. Cole was wiping his hands on a rag when he spotted her. His brows lifted in surprise, then softened into that slow, effortless smile she had somehow missed all week. "Well, if it isn't my favorite Mercedes owner," he said, leaning against the hood of a car. "Tell me it's not the transmission again." She laughed, genuinely this time.
"No, it's not the car. It's me," he tilted his head, teasing.
"Should I check under the hood?" "Maybe later," she said, smiling. Then she hesitated, holding her breath for half a second before blurting it out.
I wanted to thank you."
"For helping me that night."
"And for the ride."
"I thought maybe I could return the favor. Dinner's on me." Cole wiped the last of the grease from his fingers.
"You don't have to." "I know," she interrupted softly.
"But I want to." He studied her for a moment, as if trying to read the space between her words, then nodded. "All right, but only if Lily can come too. She's been talking about the fancy lady with shiny shoes all week." Victoria laughed, covering her mouth. "Then I'd be honored." 2 hours later, the three of them sat inside Maggie's diner, a cozy little spot off Main Street with red vinyl booths and the smell of butter and pancakes lingering in the air. Lily was perched between them, swinging her legs as she drew on a paper napkin with a crayon the waitress had given her. "Daddy, look! It's our car, and that's the lady with the shiny shoes." Victoria leaned over, grinning. "You're quite the artist," Lily beamed. "Daddy says I get it from Mom. She used to paint before she went to heaven." For a moment, silence settled over the table. Victoria's chest tightened, not with pity, but with an ache she couldn't quite name. Cole's smile was gentle, but there was a trace of grief beneath it, quiet and permanent, like an old scar. "I'm sure she'd be proud," Victoria said softly. He nodded. "I hope so." The waitress arrived, setting down 3 plates of food, burgers, fries, and milkshakes. Simple, perfect. Victoria blinked at the sight. "You ordered for me?" Cole chuckled. "You didn't strike me as a salad-only kind of woman." "Don't worry. It's a local specialty." She picked up the burger, laughing. "You'd be surprised how long it's been since I ate something that didn't come in a takeout box." "Then tonight's a good start," he said, raising his glass. "To second chances." She clinked her milkshake glass against his. "To second chances." As the evening went on, the conversation shifted easily on, from work to childhood, from city life to small-town stories. Cole talked about growing up in Riverside, about how he'd taken over the garage after his father passed away.
"It's not glamorous," he said, "but it keeps the lights on and the wheels turning, literally." Victoria smiled.
"You make it sound like poetry," he shrugged. "Maybe fixing cars isn't that different from law, you know? People bring you something broken, and they hope you can make it right again." She paused, surprised by how much that struck her. "The difference," she said slowly, "is that you actually get to fix things." Cole chuckled, but didn't push further. He just looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time in a long time, Victoria didn't feel like she had to pretend. Lily returned from the counter with a sundae the size of her head.
"Daddy, can Miss Victoria have some too?"
"Of course," Cole said. "But only if she promises not to steal your cherries." Victoria leaned down, stage whispering, "Don't tell him, but I hate cherries." Lily giggled, eyes twinkling.
"Then you can have the whipped cream."
And in that moment, as their laughter mingled with the hum of the diner and the warmth of the setting sun filtered through the blinds, Victoria realized something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. When they stepped outside later that night, The sky had turned deep blue, stars glimmering faintly above the quiet street. Cole walked her to her car. Lily had fallen asleep in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder, curls catching the moonlight. "She's lovely," Victoria whispered. "She's my whole world," he said simply. She nodded. "You're a good father." He looked at her, half smiling. "You'd be surprised how often I don't feel like one." "Then you're doing it right," she said. The best parents always worry they're not enough. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them felt charged, tender. Then Cole stepped back. "Thank you. For dinner." "Lily will talk about it for a week," Victoria smiled softly. "Then maybe we should do it again before the week's over?" He hesitated, as if unsure whether she meant it. When he finally met her eyes, something unspoken passed between them. Fragile, new, real. "I'd like that," he said quietly. She got into her car, rolling down the window. "Next time you choose the place," he grinned. "You might regret that. Round here, we're more tacos than truffles." "I'll take tacos," she said, "as long as it's with the right company." And as she drove away, Cole stood watching until her tail lights disappeared, a small smile tugging at his lips. For the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him. Something warm, hopeful, again. The following Wednesday, the rain came early, soft, silvery drizzle falling across Riverside. Victoria sat inside her office, staring at the glowing screen filled with contracts, signatures, and endless corporate jargon. Around her, the city pulsed, the hum of ambition, the rhythm of people chasing success. Yet, for the first time, none of it stirred her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Amanda, her best friend and law partner. "Client dinner tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. Wear something that says win." Victoria glanced at her reflection in the dark glass window. She looked perfect.
Flawless makeup, immaculate bun, a navy suit that cost more than most people's rent, and yet
She had never felt less like herself. Her mind wandered to a small diner with red booths, to a man whose hands smelled faintly of oil and cedar, to the sound of his daughter's laughter. She didn't realize she was smiling until her secretary knocked. "Miss Lancaster?" "The client's on the line," she blinked. "Right, patch him through." But as the voice droned on about profit margins and merger clauses, Victoria's thoughts drifted again to Cole's words that night. "You didn't strike me as a salad-only kind of woman," a ridiculous line, simple, unpolished, and yet more genuine than any compliment she had received in years. When the call ended, she exhaled, long and weary. Without thinking, she pulled out her phone and typed, "Victoria. Still owe you tacos." Cole. "Funny, I was just thinking the same." Victoria. "Tonight." Cole. "You sure?"
it's raining. Victoria. Even better. The diner was half empty when she arrived, her heels clicking softly against the tiled floor.
Cole was already there, sitting in a corner booth, sleeves rolled up, rainwater still glistening on his forearms. He stood when she entered, that small, understated smile lighting his face. "Didn't expect you'd brave the rain in those shoes." "I didn't expect you'd notice," she said, sliding into the seat. "I notice more than you think," he replied simply. A waitress brought 2 plates of tacos and steaming mugs of coffee. They ate quietly for a while, the rain tapping softly against the windows. There was no rush, no noise, just the gentle hum of a world that wasn't demanding anything of her. Then Cole asked, almost casually, "So, do you like what you do?" She froze for half a second, taco halfway to her lips. "You mean being a lawyer?" He nodded.
"Yeah, you're good at it, right? I'm
"Very good at it," she said, smiling faintly. "That's not what I asked." She looked up, meeting his eyes. They were calm, honest, kind of eyes that made lying impossible. "I used to," she admitted quietly. "When I started, I thought I'd be helping people.
making a difference."
But somewhere along the way it became about winning. Billable hours, appearances, success. Cole nodded slowly. That's a hard thing to admit. Victoria laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. You fix cars, Cole. When something's broken, you can see it, touch it, fix it. In my world, everything's broken, but no one wants it fixed. They just want it spun into gold. He leaned back, studying her. Then why keep doing it? She hesitated. Because it's what I'm supposed to do. Supposed to? He repeated. She nodded. It's what my parents wanted. What Amanda expects. What everyone sees when they look at me. And what do you see? The question landed like a quiet thunderclap. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Instead, she looked away, with the rain outside, at her own reflection in the diner window. For the first time, she saw not a successful lawyer, but a woman who didn't know what she wanted anymore. Cole's voice broke the silence. You know, people bring me cars that look shiny, spotless, but inside the engine's falling apart. Guess that happens to people too. Victoria turned to him.
You think I'm falling apart?
He shook his head.
No, I think you're just tired of pretending you're not. For a long moment, neither of them spoke.
The rain filled the silence, steady and forgiving. Finally, she smiled faintly. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is, he said. Maybe happiness isn't about more. Maybe it's about enough. She leaned back, watching him, the corners of her lips curving softly. You should be a philosopher, not a mechanic. Nah, he said, grinning.
I just listened. When the check came, she reached for it.
I invited you this time. Then next time's on me, he said. Next time? He met her gaze, steady, open. Unless you plan on pretending you don't want there to be one. Her pulse jumped. She didn't answer. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the air cool and sweet. Cole walked her to her car again, and just before she opened the door, he said quietly, For what it's worth.
You don't look like someone who's lost.
You look like someone finally realizing where she is. She looked up at him, eyes soft.
And where's that?
Right where she needs to be. She didn't know if it was the rain or his words, but her heart ached. In a good way. Good night, Cole, she whispered. He smiled. Good night, Victoria, as she drove away. The town lights blurred behind her windshield, and for the first time, she didn't rush home to her penthouse or to her next case file. For the first time, she just drove aimlessly, freely, and felt like she could breathe again. The following weeks unfolded like a quiet rhythm. Days filled with meetings, calls and contracts that blurred together, and evenings haunted by a memory she couldn't quite shake. Riverside, the smell of oil and rain, Cole's voice, warm, grounded, Lily's laughter echoing faintly in the background. It had only been 2 weeks since that rainy night at the diner, but somehow Victoria found herself taking detours, little excuses that even she didn't believe, just passing through. Thought I'd check on the car. Maybe he forgot to tighten something. Each time, she'd stop at Riverside Garage, pretending she needed something checked, tires, oil, or a strange sound the car was supposedly making. Cole never called her out on it. He'd just smile that knowing smile, wipe his hands on a rag, and ask, So, what's she pretending to do wrong today?
And every time she'd laugh.
Because deep down, she knew he knew. It became their unspoken routine. Some days, she'd bring coffee. Other days, he'd hand her a glass bottle of lemonade from the mini fridge. They'd talked just about everything and nothing. About how he built the garage from scratch after leaving the city. About Lily's obsession with painting rainbows on everything. About Victoria's favorite book, Jane Eyre, and how, for the first time, she admitted that she envied the heroine's courage to walk away from comfort to find herself. Cole listened, his hands always busy, fixing, adjusting, creating. But his eyes never wandered when she spoke. One afternoon, the air smelled like cut grass and warm asphalt. Victoria sat on the hood of her car, watching him work, his forearms flexed under the sunlight, his expression calm, focused. You really like this, don't you? She asked. He didn't look up.
Fixing things? Yeah, no, I mean,
Being here, this town, this garage. Now he looked at her, really looked. It's not perfect, but it's real.
there's a difference. Victoria smiled faintly.
Real sounds nice. You say that like it's something you don't get much of? She hesitated, eyes drifting to the road beyond the garage. My world, everything's about how it looks.
Not what it feels like. Cole set down his wrench. And how does it feel being here?
She exhaled slowly, like releasing something she didn't know she was holding.
Quiet, but not empty. That made him smile. A slow,
Knowing smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. As the weeks slipped by, her world began to shift. At the law firm, she caught herself staring out the window instead of at the contracts. Her colleagues' chatter about mergers and bonuses no longer interested her. Amanda noticed first. You've been distracted lately.
who's the lucky guy?
Victoria had laughed it off, but her heart betrayed her. She could still feel the faint smell of grease and coffee that clung to her memory. She told herself it was nothing. Just curiosity. Gratitude, maybe. A fascination with simplicity. But when she passed the mirror that night, brushing her hair, she saw it, a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there in years. One Saturday, she returned to Riverside again. It was late afternoon, sunlight spilling gold across the garage doors. Lily sat on a crate, painting a flower on a piece of cardboard, humming softly. "Hi, Miss Victoria," she chirped. "Hi, sweetheart." Victoria crouched beside her.
That's beautiful.
"Who's it for?" "For Daddy, so he remembers to smile when he's tired." Victoria looked up, and sure enough, there was Cole, under a car, his brow furrowed.
Lips pressed into a line of concentration. Something inside her melted. When he rolled out from under the car and saw her,
Surprise flashed across his face, followed by warmth.
"You again? I was in the neighborhood?" He laughed.
"Of course you were." "Don't make fun of me," she said, mock defensive. He stood, wiping his hands. "Wouldn't dare." Their eyes met. Steady, unhurried. That evening, as the sun dipped low, they sat outside the garage on 2 overturned crates, sipping root beer. The air buzzed with crickets and the faint hum of distant traffic. "I used to think happiness was somewhere out there," she said quietly.
A place you earn, not something you find. And now?
"No, I think maybe it's simpler," Cole nodded. "You know, Lily says something like that all the time. She says happiness is when people smile with their eyes." Victoria smiled softly. "Smart kid." "She takes after her mom," he said, his voice dipping just slightly. Victoria turned to him. "She's not." "Past when Lily was 3. Car accident." The quiet that followed was heavy, tender. "I'm sorry," Victoria whispered. He shrugged gently.
Life doesn't stop for the bad parts.
"You just learn to build again." She looked at him then, really looked, and realized that his strength wasn't loud or showy. It was the kind that rebuilt lives in silence. "I like the man you've built," she said softly. Cole blinked, surprised, then smiled. "And I like the woman you're becoming." She felt her heart stutter, that strange, steady ache of something beginning. When she left that evening, the sky was streaked with orange and pink. She glanced back once more, at the garage bathed in sunset, at the man waving after her, at the little girl spinning under falling leaves for the first time. Victoria didn't feel like she was leaving. She felt like she was on her way back. The sun was sinking behind the rolling hills, casting the town in hues of amber and rose. Riverside Garage stood still in the late light, its tin roof glinting faintly. The smell of gasoline mingled with fresh-cut hay drifting from the fields nearby, and somewhere a dog barked lazily in the distance. Victoria leaned against the hood of her car, the metal still warm beneath her palms. Her silk blouse caught the wind, and her hair, usually styled to perfection, was coming loose in soft waves. She didn't care. Not tonight. Cole was closing up the garage for the day, rolling down the metal door with a rattle. He wiped his hands on an old rag, his shirt streaked with oil and sunlight. When he looked at her, it wasn't the same guarded glance of a man keeping his distance. It was something gentler. "Curious, you ever just stop," he said, walking toward her, "and realize the day feels too quiet to end?" She smiled faintly. "You sound like someone who doesn't want the day to end." "Maybe I don't." There was a pause, soft and filled with things unsaid. The air was thick with that kind of stillness that happens when two people stop pretending they're just friends. He leaned against the truck beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was fragile, precious. Victoria's gaze wandered over the empty street, the fading horizon, the faint hum of crickets awakening.
"I used to think silence meant something was missing," she said quietly. "Now I think it just means—"
"Peace." Cole tilted his head, studying her. "You sound like someone who's been searching for that for a long time." She gave a soft, humorless laugh. "Maybe all my life." Her fingers toyed with the thin bracelet on her wrist, a Cartier piece that once symbolized success, status.
"Now it just felt heavy. I built my life on what looked right," she said.
The right school, the right job, the right man. But I don't even know what right feels like anymore. Cole was quiet for a long moment before answering. Maybe right isn't supposed to look a certain way. Maybe it's supposed to feel like home. She turned to him, meeting his gaze. His eyes were a deep brown, steady and kind. The kind of eyes that saw through, not at. "And what feels like home to you, Cole?" she asked softly. He smiled, glancing toward the small house down the road, where the porch light flickered on automatically.
"That place?" Lily's laughter.
"A cup of coffee that's too strong." "Fixing something that was broken." He paused, his voice lower now. "Sometimes."
"Talking to you," her heart skipped.
The words were simple, but they landed like a confession. She didn't look away this time. "Talking to me?" she teased, though her voice was barely a whisper. "Yeah?" He met her eyes. "You don't talk like people from the city. You don't try to sound smarter than everyone. You just—"
"Speak. Maybe that's because you actually listen." A smile tugged at his lips.
"And I guess we're both doing something rare." For a moment, the world shrank to just that. The sound of their breathing, the fading glow of sunset painting the garage door gold, and the unspoken current pulling them closer. Lily came skipping out of the house, her small hands clutching a drawing. "Daddy!"
"Miss Victoria, look!"
Cole bent down, taking the paper from her. It was a crayon drawing, a woman with long hair, a man with messy brown hair, and a little girl holding both their hands. Victoria froze.
Her throat tightened. "What's this, sweetheart?"
Cole asked gently. "Our family," Lily said simply. Victoria's breath caught. Cole's smile faltered just slightly as he looked between his daughter and Victoria. The air seemed to hold its breath. Then he chuckled softly, ruffling Lily's hair.
"That's beautiful, Bug," Lily beamed,
oblivious to the silent storm she'd just stirred, and skipped back inside. When the door shut, the quiet between them changed. Victoria stared at the gravel, her voice trembling slightly.
"She thinks I'm part of your family." Cole's voice was low.
"She draws the people who make her feel safe." The words sank deep. For the first time in years, Victoria realized she wasn't afraid of belonging somewhere small, somewhere ordinary. She turned toward him, eyes glassy with emotion.
"I like the woman I become when I'm here," she whispered. "I don't recognize her anywhere else." Cole's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable.
Then he said, quietly but firmly, "I like you too, Victoria."
"Even though I know I shouldn't," her heart twisted.
"Why shouldn't you?" "Because we come from two different worlds," he said, "and people like me."
"Don't get to keep people like you." The rawness in his voice made her chest ache.
"Maybe that's not your decision to make," she replied softly. He looked at her then, really looked. like a man seeing sunlight after too long in the dark. For a heartbeat, it felt as though they might close the distance between them. The world slowed, the air hummed, but then Cole took a step back, eyes flickering with restraint.
It's getting late.
You should head back before the fog rolls in. Victoria nodded, even though her heart screamed to stay. Yeah, you're right. But when she turned to leave, she heard him whisper, barely audible, maybe someday.
I won't be. Driving away that night, the fog settled low over the road,
And the reflection of the garage lights glowed faintly in her rearview mirror. For the first time in a long time, Victoria didn't feel trapped between who she was and who she was supposed to be. She just felt alive, and that terrified her. Because deep down,
she knew she was already falling for him.
the city looked different now. Colder somehow, even beneath the brilliant morning sun. From her office window on the 34th floor, Victoria gazed down at the endless stream of taxis crawling through Manhattan. 6 years she'd spent here, building a reputation, collecting titles, winning cases that never meant anything beyond a paycheck. Today, her resignation letter sat neatly folded on her desk. The firm's name, Henderson, Blake and Myers LLP, gleamed in gold on the door. It had once filled her with pride. Now it felt like a cage. Are you absolutely sure about this? Amanda asked from the doorway, arms crossed, brows drawn tight. Amanda was her closest friend, sharp, loyal, and completely baffled. Victoria nodded. Yes, Amanda sighed, stepping closer.
Vic, this place made you.
People would kill for your position. Victoria gave a small, weary smile.
That's the thing, Mandy. It made me.
But not in a way I like, Amanda frowned. This is about that mechanic, isn't it? Victoria froze.
It's not about him, isn't it?
Amanda's tone softened, almost pitying. You met him, and suddenly you want to throw away everything you've built. Victoria shook her head.
No, Amanda.
He just reminded me there's more to life than winning. For a moment, the city noise filled the silence between them. Sirens wailing, horns blaring, the hum of ambition everywhere. Amanda sighed, finally understanding she couldn't stop her. Then I hope he's worth it, Victoria smiled faintly.
He doesn't have to be. I'm doing this for me. 2 hours later, she stepped out of the building for the last time.
The air smelled like rain, sharp and cleansing. She walked without direction, her heels echoing on the wet pavement, until she stopped in front of a small, non-profit office tucked between 2 coffee shops. The sign read, Community Legal Access, Helping Families Find Justice. A week ago, she had seen the posting for an open volunteer position. Today, she walked inside. The woman at the reception desk looked up. Can I help you? Victoria smiled, nerves tingling. Yes, I'm here to apply. By late afternoon, she had a new job title, Pro Bono Counsel.
No corner office, no assistant.
No paycheck worth boasting about. But when she walked out of the small building, holding her new ID badge, her chest felt light, as if she could finally breathe again. That evening, she found herself driving toward Riverside. The highway opened up before her, the city lights fading behind like a dream she had outgrown. By the time she reached the familiar wooden sign that read, Welcome to Riverside, twilight had already painted the sky in lavender and rose. The garage lights were still on. Cole was leaning over the hood of a car, sleeves rolled up, grease on his forearm. When he saw her car pull in, his expression shifted from surprise to something warmer. Well, he said, wiping his hands with a rag. Look who's driving all the way out here without a flat tire excuse. Victoria laughed, stepping out of the car. For once, my car's perfectly fine. That's suspicious, he teased. So what brings you to this side of the world? She took a breath, the air thick with motor oil and wildflowers.
I quit my job, Cole blinked.
You what? I quit, she repeated, smiling through the tremor in her voice. Walked out just
done. He leaned back against the car, studying her.
That's a big move.
You sure you're okay?
I'm more than okay, she said softly.
I'm free. For a moment he didn't speak, just nodded, a slow, proud smile forming.
You did it? Yeah. She looked down, chuckling. My dad thinks I've lost my mind. Amanda probably does too. But for the first time, I don't care, Cole's voice lowered. You finally stopped living for them. Victoria met his eyes, something tender and raw passing between them.
Maybe I finally started living for me? Before he could answer, a small voice piped up from behind him. Miss Victoria!
Lily ran toward her, pigtails bouncing, pizza box in her tiny hands. Daddy said we're celebrating pizza night. You should join. Victoria laughed, crouching to Lily's height.
Pizza night? That sounds official. It's very official, Lily said with mock seriousness.
Rules are, you have to eat 2 slices and tell one happy thing that happened today. Cole smiled. You heard the boss, Victoria pretended to think. I guess my happy thing is...
I quit a job I hated, Lily gasped, wide-eyed. That's awesome.
Daddy quit his job too once, Cole chuckled.
I didn't quit. I got fired, Bug. Same thing. Lily giggled. They all laughed, and for a moment...
The world felt simple again. Later, sitting outside the garage on old wooden crates, the 3 of them ate warm slices under a sky dotted with stars. Victoria leaned back, the cool night brushing against her skin. The laughter, the smell of melted cheese, the faint hum of the countryside, everything felt impossibly peaceful. Cole handed her a beer. To new starts, she clinked the bottle gently. To second chances, they drank in silence, both lost in the moment. Then Cole turned to her, his voice steady but soft.
Vic, I need to ask you something. She looked at him, heart skipping. Okay, he took a breath.
I don't have much to offer.
Not money, not status.
Just Lily and me, and a small life that's honest. Are you sure that's what you want? Her eyes softened. Cole, I've had everything they said I should want, and it never made me happy. What I want now is real. He hesitated. And what if real isn't easy? She smiled, eyes shining. Then it's worth it. At that moment, Lily ran back out with 2 sparklers she'd found in an old drawer. As make wishes, she squealed. Cole groaned playfully. Where did you even find those? Magic, Lily said proudly, handing one to Victoria. As the sparklers hissed and glowed in the darkness, Victoria whispered to herself, This is what happy feels like. Cole watched her, the golden light reflecting in his eyes. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to, because for the first time since his wife's passing and her long climb through loneliness, they both knew they weren't lost anymore. They had simply found their way home. The rain had come softly that night, tapping against the tin roof of the garage like a slow heartbeat. The pizza boxes were empty now, and Lily had fallen asleep on the couch inside, her small hand still clutching a crayon. Cole stood by the workbench, arms folded, watching the drops of water slide down the foggy window. The dim light above flickered, painting the room in shades of amber and gold. Behind him, Victoria lingered by the open doorway, letting the night air touch her face. You okay? Cole asked, his voice low but gentle. She nodded. Just thinking. Dangerous habit, he teased. She smiled faintly. So I've been told. He turned, leaning against the bench, studying her. The way her hair framed her face, the quiet strength in her posture.
You don't seem like the kind of woman who stops to think.
You seem like the kind who just keeps going. She let out a soft laugh. You're right. I used to keep going even when it hurt.
I thought if I just worked harder, proved myself more, it would fill the emptiness.
But it never did. Cole's eyes softened.
And now?
She looked at him. Now I'm learning to stop running. For a long moment, they simply stood there, the hum of the rain the only sound between them. Then Cole spoke, his tone uncertain but steady. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were trouble. She raised an eyebrow.
Trouble?
Yeah, he said with a grin. The kind that walks into a place like this in heels looks like she belongs in a magazine. and somehow still asks if I'm okay while I'm under a car. She laughed quietly.
And now?
He hesitated. Now I think you're the best kind of trouble, the kind that makes me want to be better. Her heart tightened.
Cole, he stepped closer, the air between them warming. I need to be honest with you, Vic. I've been a single dad for 6 years.
I don't have time for games or fancy words.
I don't have a mansion or a trust fund. I don't even have matching socks half the time, she laughed through the sudden sting of tears. That's okay. I don't have matching pieces of my life either, he smiled sadly. I can't promise I won't mess up.
But I can promise this. I'll show up. Every day.
I'll be there, even when it's hard, she swallowed, voice trembling. That's more than anyone's ever promised me. Cole took one more step forward, close enough that she could feel the heat of his breath.
You deserve someone who doesn't walk away when things stop being convenient. Her eyes filled.
And you deserve someone who sees more than the grease on your hands, he chuckled, voice rough.
Guess we both got lucky then. The silence that followed was tender, heavy with all the words they didn't need to say. Victoria reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face.
You know, I used to make lists.
The perfect partner, the perfect life, the perfect future. But I never wrote down this. A garage that smells like oil and coffee, a man who fixes cars, and a little girl who calls me the pretty lady. Cole tilted his head.
And now?
She looked around. The old car parts, the rain, the flicker of the light, and smiled softly. Now I think this is perfect, he laughed quietly, his chest rising with relief. You really think you can handle this chaos? She smirked. Try me. And that was all it took. He reached out, fingers brushing her cheek, before pulling her into a kiss. Slow, uncertain, but real. The kind that didn't ask for forever, only honesty. When they finally parted, Victoria leaned her forehead against his chest, eyes closed. You smell like motor oil and rain, she whispered. And you, he murmured. Smell like trouble and coffee, they both laughed, the sound soft and unguarded. Two people who had spent too long pretending, finally learning how to breathe again. Later that night, she helped him carry Lily to her bed. The little girl stirred, murmuring sleepily, Daddy, did the stars come out yet? Cole tucked the blanket around her. Not yet, Bug.
But they're getting there. Victoria lingered at the door, smiling.
When she looked back, Cole was watching her. Something steady and certain in his gaze. Stay for a while, he said quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, they sat outside under the porch roof, the rain finally easing into mist. The world smelled of wet earth and new beginnings. Cole glanced sideways. You know, you don't have to fix everything right away.
It's okay to just
be, Victoria smiled, the corners of her lips trembling. That's new for me, but maybe I can learn. You can, he said softly.
You already are. She looked up at him, and for the first time there was no fear, no pretense.
Just gratitude. For the broken car, the wrong turn, the man who saw her when she couldn't see herself. Cole, she whispered. I don't need perfect.
I just need real. He reached out, taking her hand in his.
Then you're in the right place. The porch light flickered once more, and they sat there in comfortable silence. Two souls finding shelter not from the storm, but within it. The late afternoon light spread across Riverside like honey, thick, golden, and slow. The air carried the scent of cut grass and motor oil, a strangely comforting mix that had come to define home for Victoria Lancaster. It had been a full year since the night of the rain and the confession.
A year since she'd said yes, not to marriage, but to staying, to trying.
To loving honestly. Now she sat on the wooden steps outside the garage, a glass of lemonade sweating in her hand. Cole was bent over the open hood of a dusty old pickup, humming under his breath to a country tune playing faintly from the radio. Lily was in the yard, sitting cross-legged on the driveway, crayons scattered everywhere, her tongue poking out in concentration as she drew. Victoria leaned her head back, eyes half closed, letting the warmth sink into her skin. It was one of those days where time seemed to slow, not because nothing was happening, but because everything felt right. Cole looked up, wiping his hands on a rag. "You're smiling," he said, walking over. She opened one eye.
"That's allowed, isn't it?"
"Depends," he teased, sitting beside her. "If it's because of me, then it's definitely allowed." She nudged him playfully.
"Maybe it's because of Lily. She's drawing something." He turned his head toward the driveway. "Hey, Bug."
"What you got there?" Lily held up the paper proudly.
"It's us."
"Look, Daddy, that's you, me, and Miss Victoria."
"And that's the garage. And that's the sun. See how big it is?"
Victoria smiled.
"It's beautiful, sweetheart." The little girl beamed. "It's our family," she said, so simply, as if it had always been true. Cole's throat tightened.
He exchanged a glance with Victoria, whose eyes shimmered softly. "Yeah, it is," he said quietly. "It really is." For a while they sat in silence, watching Lily draw another sun. Victoria spoke first. "You know, a year ago I would have never believed I'd end up here, sitting in a garage, drinking lemonade, feeling completely—"
"Content." Cole tilted his head.
"You make it sound like a bad thing," she laughed. "No, it's the best thing.
"It's just new."
I used to think happiness had to come from big wins, promotions, trophies, luxury apartments.
"But this—" She gestured at the yard, the sound of Lily humming, the smell of grease. "This feels real." He leaned back, stretching his arms behind him. "That's because it is." She looked at him, eyes glinting.
"You always know the right thing to say," he chuckled.
"Nah, I just say what's true." Then, as if remembering something, Cole stood up and walked into the garage.
She watched him disappear behind the workbench, rummaging through drawers. When he came back, his hands were slightly greasy again, but this time he was holding a small velvet box.
Worn at the edges, Victoria froze. He knelt down, not dramatic, not rehearsed.
Just quiet, honest, like everything he did. "I don't have diamonds or gold," he began softly. "This was my grandmother's ring. She used to say love doesn't need to sparkle. It just needs to last." Her eyes filled immediately. "Victoria," he said, voice steady now, "you walked into my life because your car broke down."
"I thought I was helping you that night, but the truth is, you're the one who fixed me." She laughed through tears. "You're really bad at metaphors," he grinned.
"Yeah, but I'm good at loving you."
"So, will you marry me?"
The world seemed to still. The hum of the cicadas, the low growl of an engine somewhere down the street, Lily's faint humming. Everything softened around that one question. Victoria pressed her hand to her mouth, nodding, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking.
"Of course, yes." Cole slid the ring onto her finger, a thin band of gold, slightly dented but warm from his touch.
It fit perfectly. Lily jumped up, squealing. "Does that mean Miss Victoria's going to stay forever?" Victoria turned, laughing through tears. "Yes, sweetheart. Forever." The little girl clapped her hands and ran to hug them both, squeezing tightly between their arms. Cole kissed the top of her head. "You okay, Bug?" She nodded. "We're a family now." He looked up at Victoria, eyes shining with something deeper than happiness. Gratitude, maybe, or awe.
"Yeah," he murmured.
"We are." They sat there until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange and lavender. The shadows of the trees stretched long across the gravel driveway, and somewhere a dog barked lazily. Victoria leaned her head on Cole's shoulder, watching Lily chase fireflies with a mason jar. "You know," she said softly.
"I used to think I was lost when my car broke down that night." He smiled. "And now?"
She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now I think I finally found my way home." Cole brushed his thumb across her knuckles. "Funny how life works. Sometimes things have to break before they can lead you somewhere better." Victoria looked down at her ring. Simple, imperfect, and real.
"Sometimes," she said, smiling. The breakdown is the blessing. Cole laughed, wrapping an arm around her. I'm going to put that on a bumper sticker, she chuckled, resting against him.
You'd sell out in a week. He kissed her temple, whispering against her hair, You're my best decision, Vic. She closed her eyes, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat against her. You're my right place. The golden light faded into dusk and the world settled into stillness, a quiet, complete kind of happiness that didn't need to be loud to be known. The morning sun poured through the kitchen window like liquid gold, lighting up the old oak table where 3 coffee cups sat, one big, one medium, and one tiny pink mug with the words Girl Power scribbled across it in glitter paint. Lily was already dressed for school, her backpack nearly as big as she was. She was humming softly, braiding her doll's hair while munching on toast. Cole leaned against the counter, reading the paper. Though he hadn't turned a page in 10 minutes, his attention kept drifting toward Victoria, who stood by the stove, her hair tied messily, wearing one of his flannel shirts over jeans. Something smells good, he said, pretending to stretch but mostly just watching her. Victoria smirked without turning around. You say that every morning and it's the same thing every time. Eggs, toast and burnt coffee. He grinned. I'm a man of consistency, Lily giggled. Daddy just likes Mommy's cooking 'cause he's in love. Cole raised a brow.
You been reading romance books again?
No, she said proudly. But Miss Parker at school says when people stare at each other like that, it means love. Victoria turned, laughing, a faint blush rising in her cheeks. Miss Parker sounds very wise, Lily shrugged. She's getting married. She says love makes you do silly things. Cole caught Victoria's gaze across the kitchen. That soft, knowing look they shared every time life felt almost too good to be real. 2 years. 2 full years since that night her car broke down on the back road and she'd stumbled into a life she never planned for but had somehow always needed. Now, their home was small but alive. Potted plants lined the windowsill, Lily's drawings covered the fridge, and the faint smell of motor oil always seemed to linger on Cole's hands, no matter how many times he washed them. After breakfast, Lily ran to grab her shoes. Cole took the chance to slip behind Victoria, wrapping his arms around her waist. Morning, Mrs. Almost Davidson, he whispered against her ear. She leaned back into him. You're still calling me that? We've been engaged for a year, he shrugged. Well, I'm just waiting for you to pick a date. She smiled, stirring the eggs.
Maybe I like the sound of almost. Keeps you on your toes. Cole chuckled, kissing her shoulder.
Your trouble, you know that? I've been told, she said lightly. Then quieter, but you love trouble? I do, he murmured, tightening his hold. Especially when it wears my shirt and makes my kitchen smell like heaven. Lily appeared at the doorway, eyes squinting suspiciously.
Are you two hugging again?
Victoria laughed.
Caught us red-handed. Yuck, the girl said, though she was smiling. You're going to be late, Daddy, Cole sighed dramatically.
Fine. Let's go, Bug. After they left, the house fell quiet except for the faint ticking of the old wall clock and the birds outside. Victoria poured herself a fresh cup of coffee, walked to the porch, and sat on the swing Cole had built last summer. The air smelled of pine and warm earth. From this porch, she could see the narrow dirt road leading down to the garage, the same road where she'd first met him. In heels and frustration years ago, she smiled, tracing her thumb over the handle of the mug. Funny how the worst day of my life became the best thing that ever happened. Her phone buzzed, a message from the Community Legal Aid Center where she worked now. Client from Miller's Creek coming at 2 p.m. Single mum eviction notice.
Might need you, she texted back. I'll be there. Every time she helped someone like that, she thought of her old life, the high-rise law firms, the designer suits, the empty victories.
Now her office had peeling paint and a leaky roof, but when a mother hugged her in tears after winning a case, it felt like the richest thing in the world. An hour later, Cole's pickup rumbled up the drive. He stepped out with grease on his hands and sunlight in his hair, carrying a brown paper bag. "What's this?" she asked, meeting him halfway. "Lunch," he said. "From the diner. Thought you'd be too busy saving the world to eat." She smiled. "You're too good to me." He handed her the bag, his thumb brushing her wrist. "No such thing." They sat on the porch steps, eating sandwiches in the soft midday light. Lily's laughter echoed faintly from the neighbor's yard. She was playing with the Miller twins again. Victoria leaned her head against Cole's shoulder. "Do you ever think about
How we got here?"
He chuckled. "Every time that old Mercedes passes the shop," she laughed.
That poor car.
"It didn't deserve what happened to it." "Sure it did," he said. "If it hadn't broken down, I never would have met you." Victoria looked up at him, eyes bright. "You really believe that?" He nodded, serious now. "Yeah, I think life has a funny way of giving us detours when we need them most," she smiled. "Detours. I like that." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You're my favorite one." Her breath caught, not because the words were grand, but because they were so quietly true. As the afternoon sun deepened, Lily came running up the steps, holding a handful of wildflowers. "For you, Mommy." Victoria took them, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "They're beautiful." "For you too, Daddy," Lily added, sticking one behind Cole's ear. He grinned. "Guess I'm beautiful now." The three of them laughed. Sitting together on the porch swing, flowers in their hands, sunlight spilling over everything like grace. Victoria looked at them both, her husband-to-be with grease under his nails,
Her daughter with dirt on her knees, and felt something bloom inside her chest that no amount of success could ever compare to. "This," she whispered.
"Is what home feels like." Cole looked down at her.
"Yeah," he said softly.
"It sure is." And as the sun sank low over Riverside, painting the world in hues of amber and peace, Victoria realized she'd stopped searching. The road she'd taken, the wrong turn, the broken car, the unplanned detour had brought her exactly where she was always meant to be. Home.